It's a sustainable heating sort of solution for the city of Helsinki. They're these sort of floating islands, aesthetically look a bit like the Eden Project, but floating. So these sort of like bubbles with, I guess, hexagon shapes sort of across them. And they're basically massive reservoirs. Yeah, they're these huge reservoirs of water. They hold 10 million cubic meters. And we always love a stupid stat. It's 3,300 Olympic swimming pools worth of water. Just to visualize that for everyone.
Why don't I like how you put the weight.
Yeah. I know.
Welcome back to the podcast. So today we've got a special episode. In addition to Carlos, we are joined by a guest host, Sam Hanisch. Sam's an account executive at AFEX, and based on the topics that we're covering today, someone that knows a thing or two about construction and technology and some of the things we're going to cover. So Sam, mate, thank you very much for making it back. You enjoyed your first time so much. It didn't take any persuading, mate.
Thanks for having us back. Good to be here.
Awesome. Carlos, how are you going, buddy?
I'm good. I'm outnumbered. I've got a Vegemite hat in the office. I was thinking about putting it on so I can join you rather than make the 2-on-1 a trio.
Vegemite hats are like kind of the equivalent of, those shirts that are kind of a big Union Jack that people in Australia think that's what
Australian culture.
Come on.
It's like that's what we think you wear every day, and you think we wear Vegemite hats every day.
We wear them to riots if you're part of that. Okay,
so it's identical to the Vegemite hats because the rioters here, it's very similar.
I was confused when I came over last year that there weren't Vegemite hats everywhere because Angus suggests they're common fashion, but anyway, we'll see.
Yeah, well, Angus had the day off recently, maybe to do some writing, so it could all be it could all be making sense. On that though, this is probably for another time. Sam, Promite or Vegemite?
Vegemite, obviously. Who goes Promite?
Me.
You on Promite?
What's Promite?
Yeah.
Is Promite like the little Vegemite?
It's like the pro version of Vegemite.
It's the runny one, yeah.
No, it's just a different taste. I don't know.
Marmite's Marmite or Vegemite?
Or Vegemite. I like the consistency of Marmite though. That's pretty good. It's an easy spread. But Vegemite all the way.
Marmite, it's spreadable Vegemite. Is that the? I've never tasted Marmite. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you can tip it out.
Oh really? Oh, that seems like something's wrong. That seems like something's wrong with it then.
Yeah, they've messed something up along the way. It's bad Vegemite, rebranded.
It's bad Vegemite.
They've messed it up, rebranded it, and made you all excited about it. Nice.
Yeah.
No, pro tip, pun intended, go Promite. It's way better than Vegemite. No response. Yeah, right. Cool.
Is it not $10 a jar? Because then you might win me over for it. I don't know if you've seen the price of a jar of Vegemite these days, but it's like $10 for a jar.
Cost of living is hitting hard now.
Yeah.
They've got the Vegemite.
Yeah. Well, especially in Bali, where you are, Sam. I don't know what Vegemite is. I don't even
want to check here. It'll be 20.
Awesome. So we've got some topics to cover today. So we're going to do 3 different things. The first thing we're going to dive into is recently there was a list published of the top energy infrastructure projects around the world, which had some super interesting projects that I'd never personally heard of. So we're going to dive into that list a little bit. Then we're going to discuss why there's this like increasing trend of people from construction moving into like construction technology roles and discuss exactly as you've done, Sam, discuss that a little bit. And then finally, there's the recent acquisition of a US-based construction software company, Cruise by Core, by a Saudi Arabian company, WakeCap, and these kind of 2 smaller software companies combining. We see what that means for, I guess, the future of what the product they're trying to build and dive into that a little bit. I guess topic off the bat, these energy infrastructure projects. Carlos, you love doing research into projects around the world. I might set it up and then we just dive into, I guess, one of the ones that you found. Obviously, there's this big energy transition happening at the moment. The world's kind of energy mixes is being actively changed because of things like the data center demand driven by things like AI, and then this transition to things like EVs. that's pushing across lots of parts of the world a big change in the energy mix, which is then driving this big demand for infrastructure development, energy transmission and generation, and also storage. So this list is some of the largest and most ambitious schemes in the world that was recently published, and we'll put it in the show notes from a news source. And yeah, as I said, some of these I'd never heard of, and I was blown away by the scale of some of these projects happening all over the world. Carlos, what jumped out to you, mate?
Yeah, the first one, I don't know if I just completely missed it because it feels like it should be something that's more commonly known about, but the Hot Heart project in Helsinki. It's a sustainable heating sort of solution for the city of Helsinki. They're these sort of floating islands, aesthetically look a bit like the Eden project, but floating. So these sort of like bubbles with, I guess, hexagon shapes sort of across them. And they're basically massive reservoirs. Yeah, they're these huge reservoirs of water. They hold 10 million cubic meters. And we always love a stupid stat. It's 3,300 Olympic swimming pools worth of water. Just to visualize that for everyone.
Why don't
I like how you put the weight.
Yeah.
I know.
Swimming pools or
do
shards. That's what we measure.
I could do like
in here.
Pints. That's like 7 million pints
Pints
a
is
good.
better.
Wow. Yeah. So it houses this water. It heats the water using sustainable energy. So it uses unused energy, I guess, from the grid, but it also has its own sort of wind and solar attached to it. And then it distributes the hot water through the city, which is like a huge reduction in energy being consumed. And it's trying to take them to this 2035 carbon neutral target in the city.
So run that again. So it's a storage system as opposed to like
thermal batteries.
Yeah, they're storing this water, and in these pods, it's keeping the water at temperature using renewable energy to keep it heated, and then it distributes the water to the city as hot water directly to homes and offices and everything else.
All right, I'll be the one that's going to ask the dumb question. Why are they in the ocean?
Access to water. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so
because
I just
Sam's researched it. Here we go.
Mate, this one, because it's the sexy. It's the
That's why we
sexiest
brought
of the
an engineer
lot.
to this chat.
No,
Yeah.
this is the one that's got like, it just looked like super futuristic. They've jammed like AI across the it was all the buzzwords and all the cool things in one. So yeah, Sam hit me because
Did you see the video?
I'm the dumb.
No, I didn't get a video.
So it's the they're using, because I was thinking how they
ChatGPT does videos.
Yeah. It's seawater heat pumps, which I had no idea about, and I looked it up. Right. And they're using heat transfer. They pull the seawater in, and then they transfer the heat through like a refrigerant, and then they compress it to bring the heat up, and then that's heating the water, and that gets transferred to these big pods or whatever they are, and it keeps that water at a hot temperature. So in the videos, it almost looks like, thermal baths. And I don't know if you cover that, but they've got those big recreational areas that they're planning to build there as well, which is, completely different to any other energy project on that list.
So are
you
they doing? If my face isn't telling, I'm looking. So I get the water and the heat transfer. That's quite cool. But is the like the sea level thing part of the motion of it, or is it just the thermal mass of the water is what they're going for?
I thought it was just it's not a sea motion thing, but I don't know did you see anything, Carlos, on that?
Yeah, no, my assumption
it's pumping
was
it, using it. No.
Yeah, my assumption was it was just like a convenient place to put reservoirs, because Norway's quite mountainous, right? So there's 10 of them and they're quite large. So you need quite a huge area to put this on land and then pump the water in. So I guess if you can float it, why not?
Do you know when it's supposed to be being built?
It's due for completion, I think, in about 1 or 2 years. It says mid-2020s, which is a bit loose.
So they had a renewables target by 2035 to get net zero on their heating for Helsinki or wherever it was. And by building this, in theory, it'll get them there by 2028. So pretty impressive outcome. Plus, looks awesome. Plus, it's these massive recreation areas. I think 4 of the pods are going to they'll have like a little rainforest in there. They'll have a couple of beaches and lakes. So pretty cool.
To ask a dumb question, Probably. Transporting hot water long distances, it must be quite hard to maintain the temperature. Or do you think it heats to the point of steam? And when you lose so much heat,
This
during
seems like a
travel-
question for Sam.
No, I mechanical, all that,
Pass.
powered hard. I can't remember this stuff. It makes water hot.
You just do
and send it.
concrete, right?
Yeah. No, gave up on that years
Yeah.
ago.
Anyway,
No idea.
that's
That sounds
something.
fair.
I'll
That's a fair
find
question.
someone to answer that question. Maybe I bring up British Gas.
What's it on hold for 7 days? Let's jump to another one. Sam, while you're educating us, were there any on the list that jumped out to you?
Yeah, so the first one, number 10, like reading top down, is the Madhya Pradesh floating solar array. I don't know if you got a chance to look into that one. The thing that jumped out to me, so they spent all this time and investment building this thing, and it's a floating, so there's a dam somewhere in the middle of India and a reservoir where they floated all these solar panels.
Yeah.
And however long they took to build it, 1 week after they started operating, they had a huge storm which knocked out like a quarter of the system. So as a developer's nightmare, they've put this huge investment in. I was looking through trying to find a video of it, and it was like a proper mess. You just see these huge wakes of water traveling along this reservoir, just knocking over these solar arrays. They're all getting piled up next to each other. And the developers have dropped a quote after saying, "Oh, it's all good. We'll have it sorted shortly." And it looks like an biggest nightmare you could think of.
We recently did an episode. We dove into like the top 10 unluckiest projects, and I was surprised that wasn't on the list. I got another dumb question. When it says floating solar array, the photos that I'm looking at are all on land.
Yeah. Quicksand. Quicksand.
And this is
I feel like this and the last project have mixed each other up. This one should be on the water, and then the giant pools of water should probably be on the land.
Yeah, to tell you the truth, I saw floating and I saw the picture and I went through the list and I came back to it and looked it up, and it's not the right photo. It's actually a series of floating solar panels. It looks very cool in the summertime, still water, but then you see this video in the storm and you got to wonder who ticked it off.
Oh, I wish they had the real picture. When I was checking which ones to look into, I saw the picture. I was like, it's just another solar farm in the desert. But this looks quite cool.
Yeah, I think the idea is interesting. Like unused space. They probably already have electrical infrastructure going out there. There might be some hydroelectric happening, and then they've got chuck some solar panels out. But yeah, small design flaw. Bit of wind knocks it over. So there's probably a bunch of developers around the world that had a heap of these projects ready to go as well, and then they see this sort of thing happening, get investors a bit worried, you'd think.
I think the idea of the floating solar farms super interesting. That one there that we we're just talking about in Madhya Pradesh is 600 megawatts. But the biggest solar farm is 200,000 hectares in China.
Floating?
No. This is...
How many football pitches is that?
Yes.
I was just pausing to like try and work it out. And it's supposed to be 6,000 gigawatt hours. That's crazy big.
6,000 gigawatt?
Nah, it couldn't be that much. I thought some of these new, like,
I'm saying
$50 billion
check.
I think I just read something. India was investing $50 billion to get like 38 gigawatt of new renewables.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
More trustworthy news source here. 3.5 gigawatt solar farm. 6 billion kilowatt hours. So I think the other source had probably just like mixed up their numbers a bit. But yeah, it's like crazy how big some of these are going. The other one, just really quickly before we move on, that jumped out to me was obviously Sam, did you know about this, the one in Australia?
No, but I had no idea. It looked like a pipe dream. It sounds like it's fairly developed.
Yeah. So for Carlos, I don't know if you saw, but there's a thing called the Asian Renewable Energy Hub, which is actually planned in Western Australia. It is 6,500 square kilometers that's designated as kind of an area of renewable energy plants. And it's supposed to deliver 26 gigawatts of wind and solar power in this kind of renewable energy area. It's supposed to have 1,700 or more wind turbines and like 18 different solar farms or arrays across the project.
Wow.
And the expected investment is about 50 billion Australian dollars. That is expected.
That's good
It
value.
is it?
26
Just,
gigawatts.
sorry, I'm just checking my bank account.
No, hey, I always refer back to Hinkley. I know Hinkley's slightly over budget.
Yeah, okay.
Hinkley's 20 billion pounds for 3 gigawatts. You're getting 10 times that.
That's pretty good value.
For a fifth of the cost. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the benchmark for good value, anyway.
Yeah. I think you should
double.
Yeah. You should also rephrase that, Carlos. It's like it's not good value. It's just not the worst value. Is probably
but like typically wind farms is about $1 billion for a gigawatt. So
yeah, okay. Well, that's basically what it is.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. Why is it called the Asian Renewable Energy Hub?
That's who we're selling it to.
Although this other site that I looked up when I was doing research into this one says the Australian Renewable Energy Hub, formerly known as the Asian Renewable Energy Hub. So,
did you see who's invested in it?
Sam. It's the developers are BP. I think there's a Chinese energy firm in there, Vestas, and then maybe some like funding banks, isn't it?
Yeah, I just noted the BP took a 40% stake a couple of years ago, which was and reading into massive. It, so they're going to make a heap of green hydrogen it sounds like to offset their to get their net renewable to like zero target of 2050. So it had a note there that they're trying to take a 10% stake of hydrogen production globally is like their internal target.
Yeah,
they were sort of going into that space, but you'd think that would be a massive contribution, that sort of those numbers.
Yeah, the thing that's crazy is like in the context of all the other renewable energy projects and zones across Australia as a country, this blew me away that I hadn't come across this one. It's still kind of early in the process, so I don't think they're expecting final investment decision until 2025 and construction hopefully commencing in 26. But that's an enormous amount of investment.
That must be quite a chunk of the overall Australian energy consumption.
Yeah, I think there was some silly. I think it was like a third. They were saying at its peak, you could do a third of the yearly production. It's interesting. What was it? Because there's that other huge project that the solar farm is it Sun Cable to transfer from like a big solar farm in the Northern Territory. And they were going to have cable run out like a subsea cable to Singapore. You've seen that? There was the guy who had he had the Atlassian, one of the old Atlassian owners.
Yeah. I was just thinking that I was at risk of making a dumb comment, but I'm surprised that like surely that must be trying to export energy. But then I'm thinking let me go back to it because I'm pretty sure it's trying to be exported and it's producing green hydrogen. So it's using the energy to produce green hydrogen or some other energy source. So I think the intention, Carlos, is for it to be an export.
Right.
Because it's a terrible location to power Australia because it's literally the furthest spot of all the people in the country.
It did mention something about trying to help South Korea and Japan reach their energy targets. So I imagine a lot of it's heading there, hence the name.
That's some distance.
Yeah, that might be the Asian bit, Carlos.
Yeah, fine.
All right, let's jump along because I'm conscious of I just saw the clock. So the next topic that we're going to dive into is, I guess, as part of this, there's this big transition happening and in the construction space where technology investment is just growing and growing and growing, and the amount of startups and funding and investment in technology is really starting to ramp up over recent years. There's this growing need that we're seeing of like professionals that have come from construction with on-site experience to help, I guess, guide the industry in the transformation and adoption of a lot of the technology. I guess the idea of having folks that are just from the technology space and translating that to site, there's like a gap that creates. So I thought it'd be interesting to talk about, one, is that something that we think is that something you think is needed, the kind of need for folks from construction to take roles at technology companies to take internal technology facing roles and be kind of the stewards of this adoption or this transformation that's happening? And what are you seeing kind of in companies, Carlos, people doing both in the like technology vendor space and then internally within companies?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. And I think if anyone looks back, and not even look back, look at certain sort of technology that people use within industries, one of the biggest frustrations is talking to people that don't really get or understand the thing that you're trying to do. And it's just like a computer says no type answers for someone without any sort of, not just deep understanding, but don't even care what you're trying to do or achieve. So the experience side of it is invaluable. But I think I'm keen to throw a question at you, Sam. Every parent's dream is for their kid to pick like a stable profession like civil engineering. It's like longevity, you're safe forever. What was the like catalyst for you to go, right, let's actually flip to the technology side? Like there must be some pull. Keen to understand what the strongest one was.
Yeah, I think anyone you talk to that's in construction, and I'm sure you felt this, there's this point when you're sort of in your mid-20s, you've been doing it for a bit, come out of uni and you do like your 5 years on site, and there's some point that everyone starts thinking, oh, this is a bit shit, or, you know, I can't picture myself doing this forever, or
tell us what you really think.
Thinking, yeah, I mean, the hours are long. There's a lot of like the outcomes, like the wins you get on projects, they're great, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. I mean, that's a core part of, you know, sort of what we're trying to help out. But yeah, I guess there's this thing where you think, you know, I wouldn't mind doing something else, or you start weighing up different things you can do that, you know, you're not starting from the bottom again. And so the typical sort of pathway that most people take is go into some plum consultancy role. That's sort of the obvious sidestep into, you know, there's no end of there's no end of sort of consultancy. Go work for the government, work on, you know, as a consultant, and like, it's not to discredit, like I did that. There's you know, there's plenty of need for it. It's interesting that you don't really think about tech, or it's not really something that is sort of thought about. You know, for me, the moment was when I wanted to do it and give something else a go was having a demo. Like, I really just loved the product and thought, you know, it'd be a good opportunity. I'm, you know, pretty passionate about planning. Inefficiencies drive me nuts. And so that was, for me personally, the point of jumping across. I never really thought about tech before that because, I didn't think it was on offer.
I think it's really interesting because I've had this conversation with many people before, and I think there's this like kind of, I guess, funny dynamic in construction where there's almost like this this pressure to like super specialize. You go into construction, you deliver a road project, and then for some reason, the conversation that happens for young engineers or folks in construction is, well, you know road projects, but you need to go and do a structures scope, or you need to go do this other type of scope. And that idea of like these kind of slight variances in discipline are so wildly different that you need to like collect the little tickets to get your experience to make it further in construction. You know, there is things that are unique to each of those types of projects, but if you zoom out, like they're very similar in the grand scheme of things. And I think that feeling of, well, if, you know, a structures project is so much different to a road project, then the idea of going and working for technology, that's crazy. That's so far outside of my zone. Yeah, on the other side of that, it's funny from the like software side how much someone that has that on-site experience has to offer for a third-party software vendor for an internal project, and actually how the skills that they've got are like 90% of the skills that you need. But when you're in the role and in construction, it feels like, you know, you're so hyper specialized that, you know, the idea of even just going to a different discipline in the same role feels like a big change.
Yeah, it's interesting to say that, because the thing that, like, having now sat in it for about, you know, 6 to 8 months, the thing that you realize is that in construction, you're constantly building something for a client. Like you've been engaged by someone to give a good product, and you're trying to get a good outcome. And really you're doing the same thing. Like there's this same relationship happening. You're trying to get good outcomes for people. It's just in a smaller, it's in a different way, and it's different to what you're used to. But when you can sort of get past like a different routine, a different rigor, at the end of the day, it's the same thing. Like you're employed to be there on site to get a good outcome for someone. So it's not a huge hurdle.
And Carlos, you said the thing before about how like every parent's dream is to go into like this industry it's safe. I think one thing that we're all seeing from all of this like AI hype is the things that people would have thought were safe are probably the things that are not safe. And so it really does make, if you were going back to yourself, I don't know, 10 years ago, 5 years ago or whatever, it's interesting what you would think about, with that kind of perspective looking back. I saw this interesting post. I probably should shout out the author. So I don't know if you've listened to the Bricks and Byte podcast, but they often have Patrick Hellerman join the podcast, and he posted, I think literally yesterday, this graphic, which I'll put up onto the screen, where he's basically talking about this trend that they've observed and studied, where from the time that a sort of technology starts attacking a market category like a vertical, the time it takes to grow from the market being $5 billion a year to about $50 billion a year in funding, it's about 8 years. And this construction technology space is kind of partway through that ramp at about 34 billion. He excludes some numbers from the mix there, so somewhere between 35 and 40 billion. So it's like partway through that ramp. But the thing that they I guess studied or claimed is that once they hit this marker of having invested 50 billion into founding technology and seeding technology, it ends up occupying or consuming between 2 and 6% of the underlying market size. So said another way, there's this kind of like incubation period of something like 8 years where the combined funding that goes into different technologies starts to ramp up towards this kind of $50 billion mark. And then it eventually starts to consume somewhere between 2 and 6% of all of the revenue in that market. So all investment in the technologies ends up between 2 and 6% of the market kind of size. And currently in the construction space, it's at 0.2%. So it's somewhere between 1/10 and like
1/30.
Yeah, 1/30. Good, better math. And so that's like a 10 to 15x size in the size of the market from here. And this graphic here kind of shows the state of like the construction space. So going back to one thing I've reflected on, thinking about when I started in construction is how little you think about the trajectory of the market that you're in, and this idea of like the rising tide lifting all boats. If I was talking to a younger version of myself and I was still in construction, I'd definitely be encouraging myself to like stick my head up above the fray for a moment and just get a sense of, where do I think the industry is going in 5-10 years? What do I think it looks like? What I think's changing? Where's the growth, and how can I kind of make an impact? I don't know if you guys got thoughts on this info.
Yeah, there's probably one thing I was thinking about is that I think often the thought is that engineers or people in construction think, all right, I'm going to go out and found something to fix a problem. Like I'm going to go out and be a founder and start something new, because you're constantly there, you're in the pain and you're thinking about, all right, I can solve this problem. Or, I'll get some developers, I'll make a piece of software or a tool and I'll fix it. And you don't often think that there's already a myriad of companies out there that are trying to solve that problem that you can actually go to and really help, with your understanding, your experience, and have a bigger impact. I think it's good to remember that, none of these companies went out and solved these big problems as one person. Like it's these huge teams that come together. And so, that's probably like the big differentiator. I can guarantee you there's a heap of engineers sitting out there. Like I speak to them now, they tell me, I'm going to write a bit of code to solve this problem. They could equally go out and have a huge impact with a bunch of companies that are working now.
It's like the classic saying or proverb, right? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And there's massive impact in, you could probably go out and get like a version 1 of a product that you try to deploy on a project or whatever yourself, but to have a real impact and to kind of ride that wave, whether it's you founding it or building a group of like-minded people together or joining a company, there's this people coalescing from the industry to form groups that go and, in the form of a company, go and do something. You're totally right, Sam.
I think also if we think about what we said earlier, which is there's this natural path in construction where you move to different areas to generate experience, and it's all about this CV a wealth of knowledge to go up the tree. You're not actually leaving the industry, and you're developing deep knowledge in the area that team or product or company is serving. So it's quite sensible to think of that as part of that journey for most people. Yeah, if we compare the career path, whether you think of that as your earnings or just the rate of acceleration through that path, the difference between going to a tech company and staying in a contractor, you're going to absolutely fly up. Like if your aim is to double your salary in 24 months, you could do that in a tech startup. If you tried to do that in a contractor, they'd laugh you out the door and say, you've got to be a division director to double that salary. So there's
you might get that done anyway.
Yeah, but the combination of the excitement and the lure of something that would be quite exciting, fun, and like exhilarating, but also you're leaving industry. You're just sat on the other side of the fence. We spend more time speaking to projects about how they run projects probably than most engineers on projects, because they're in their own little package world.
Yeah, so, definitely.
That's amazing. Yeah, that I think that like someone from construction that's delivered project that has a growth mindset, that's keen to like make an impact, any company should like find a job for them.
Yeah. They're the ones that you go, awesome, let's harness this massive energy, rather than go to that road project and focus on curbs for 12 months and come back to me then.
There's nothing wrong with curbs. Cool. Let's move on. The final thing, I guess, to discuss on the docket is, I don't know if you saw, but recently in the news, this Saudi-based content company called WakeCap acquired a US, I guess, almost Silicon Valley-based software company called Cruise by Core. I guess a somewhat odd transaction. So WakeCap is kind of like a workforce management products. So you think kind of like time and attendance. I think they have kind of some sensor products that track where people are and what they're working on. And then Cruise by Core is probably like a more field scheduling style product. It's, I guess, an unorthodox thing. Both are kind of very early in the journey, relatively small. WakeCap had only raised somewhere around $2.5 million USD. Both teams were kind of somewhere in the sort of 50 odd people. I guess to have an acquisition that early is definitely kind of like an unorthodox outcome. It'd be interesting to see, Sam or Carlos, whether you guys had any thoughts about maybe what the background of that is, and then maybe what the strategy of the acquisition from I guess either side, from the acquirer or the acquired party was.
One thing that did make me laugh when I was looking into this was Cruise by Core on one of their sites. It's like the #1 construction field execution platform. You know, when people carve such a niche that they're always number one, when you get like, this is the #1 like vegan friendly, all nut, organic, date free lunch bar for kids. Like, oh wait, we're #1. Shit. It was interesting. The company that was being acquired, Cruise by Core, their headcount's been steadily decreasing, if we take LinkedIn as any sort of truth. So, which
we all know is 100% truth.
Yeah. So I wonder if there are two sort of tools that maybe they were quite sort of, they're quite in their little niche space. And maybe they've seen that combining those offerings is a much stronger play. They marry up relatively well. It's kind of the plan versus actual thing. So my guess, from not knowing anything about the companies or reading into it that much, is they think their offering is stronger together. And it's really weird that they've like acquired or maybe merged this early, but you'd bet the Saudi-backed company probably has loads of cash. It's a bit of a play to pull in a company from America, which will probably help them get a leg into that market anyway. But the product does look very basic. So you wonder if they're just using it as a starting point rather than doing something from scratch that they actually had in pipeline. That was a brain dump of like 5 different thoughts I had reading the articles.
No, that was the initial thought. I was thinking, well, you're either going to keep the brand and you're trying to sell both the products across both the regions, but you'd think that they're thinking about some way to merge them and get, double value by combining them. But, when I start thinking about, you look at the sort of projects they're doing in Saudi, like from my understanding, you've got huge workforces on some of these projects. And so I imagine that, the product where they're getting this clocked in, clocked out is, very good. I'm trying to imagine how you then layer like a planning tool to use, like maybe the actuals data is getting that somewhere, but then someone's got to administer it. So all you're getting is you're taking actuals data and putting it into a plan. It seems like something you could do in Excel that you don't need sort of like a software integration to get heaps of value out of it.
We'll get Olu to put the shots fired sound effect over the top there. Yeah, no, you're right. It seemed like a really odd marriage. I think like the existing customer base seems like very different. One seems like smaller contractors in the US. The other's like mega projects, a handful of mega projects in the Middle East. The products themselves feel targeted at those sizes of projects, as you said, Sam. And then there's just like the actual just running of this company piece and like these two totally different cultures in the team. And then you've got like product teams in two countries. If you were doing that, you would kind of imagine you would have like a sales organization one and a sales organization the other. But you've got this like very bifurcated culturally product team. It seems like and Carlos, you pointed out the kind of trajectory of either of them. It seems like a really interesting marriage, and there's probably a lot that's not, I guess, covered in the press release. But it interestingly relates back to the previous topic where we're talking about people thinking about going and working in construction companies. It's really important that if, folks that are thinking about it, you want to think about the company that you're working for, making sure you uncover kind of the alignment with the company strategy. It's really important, I think, for folks to think about the real value that's being delivered by that software or that technology on site, because there's a lot of hype in any there's a lot of hype because sometimes you do have to kind of fake it till you make it. Yeah, if you know the kind of space, the specific niche that technology's going into, if you know that down, you'll be able to tell, is there real value delivery there, Sam? Like you said, you kind of jumped based on a demo that you saw of the product. So yeah, I definitely encourage people to do some due diligence when they're also thinking about the companies that they might make the move to. I think we'll wrap it up there because that is all the time we have today. So thank you very much, Sam, for joining us as a guest host, mate. It's nice to have some well-researched and knowledgeable people on the podcast for the change, apart from Carlos and I.
What are you trying to say?
I guess in contrast to Carlos and I. So that sounded like I was ripping into previous guests.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam, and thank you, Jason. And also a huge thank you to everyone who tuned into the show. If you did enjoy today's episode, please do like the video that you're watching or follow us on your chosen podcast platform. Your support is appreciated, and we'll see you all next week.
Thank you very much. Thanks, folks.